Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're talking about a team that's going to be facing a lot of the AFC South this year, basically all of the AFC South this year. That would be the New Orleans Saints. And I figured I'd bring on someone that is very knowledgeable about the city of New Orleans. You know, he grew up in them parts. That would be Damian Adams from The Real Deal with Damian Adams. What's going on, man?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to be on the show. I jokingly call me Interview Mike. So the fact that this is my second time on this show alongside all of the other, very, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen that you've had on the show, makes me feel kind of good, man. I can't complain.
Well, hey, man, thank you again for accepting the invitation. Of course, we're going to get into the New Orleans Saints, talk about their offseason, talk about, the different things going on there. We're going to get into that and more. But up first, like I do always, it's the Get It Off Your Chest segment. Could be about sports, could be about anything. But this one, definitely is about the preseason and it's going to be about interceptions. Of course, everyone wants to talk about interceptions. And now everyone wants to talk about interceptions in practice. Like, for example, Brock Purdy had a joint practice with the Raiders or whoever and had a couple interceptions, or you got Malik Willis throwing an interception and Will Levis, and people are worried and trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, okay, aren't they supposed to take chances in practice? Or is not supposed to be a perfect practice. I mean, aren't they supposed to, miss reads? Are they supposed to learn? Part of that learning is making mistakes. You get better. So when you get the game, you got it right. That's what happens. You can't have a perfect practice and then go out in the game and then you could have a perfect practice and then go out in the game and just throw it away. If you rather have it reversed, where you're actually throwing the football to your players in the game as opposed to practice throwing it to everybody else, I think I would rather have the game have the better results. But, that's, to me, it's just frustrating hearing people getting worried. Oh, my God, he's threw 3 picks in practice and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, Tom Brady's probably thrown 3 picks in practice. Joe Burrow has. Probably Jalen Hurts has, probably Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. I mean, you can go on and on. We go to Kurt Warner probably as well. I mean, any of the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Warren Moon probably has thrown 3 picks in practice. But in the game is where it matters. You make your mistakes in practice and correct them to be ready for the games. So please, people, don't go overboard with the interceptions in practice, because it's practice. I don't mean to sound like Allen Iverson, but we're talking about practice. Practice, y'all. Practice. Really? Come on. That's what I had to give. I mean, you got anything to add to that, Damian?
Nah, I think you hit it on the head. This is mistakes. You want to make those mistakes in practice. You want to be able to work out the kinks of what's possible with certain plays in practice against different sets, against different defenses. So when you do see him in a game and you made that mistake in practice, you're going to make a mistake again in the game when it matters. So I think you hit that on the head for sure.
Yeah, it's so frustrating, but it's part of watching and looking at social media and, seeing people that either don't know the game or are hypercritical of their teams and the game comment. That's just part of it, I guess. But we're going to move forward from, making mistakes in practice and all those different things. But we're going to talk about the New Orleans Saints. Now, last season didn't go exactly as the Saints wanted. Finished 7-10. It was a 3-way tie, 7-10. They finished 3rd in the division based off of the tie. And then, of course, just didn't have that continuity they used to having at quarterback. Drew Brees era, that was, you knew you could count on him to be the quarterback and him to do his thing. Then, of course, you have Jameis Winston, you have Taysom Hill, you have all these different guys, Teddy Bridgewater, and, just the inconsistency there kind of bled into the rest of the team for a 7-10 season. What were your thoughts on last year for New Orleans?
Man, we as a team, like you said, just lacked consistency all over the field. especially on offense. Defensively, we looked very good the second half of the season. We end up finishing top 10 in defense overall because we were so good the second half of the season on the defense side of the ball. But it was enough because offensively, we did nothing to help the defense. Andy Dalton, I don't understand why Dennis Allen was so stubborn about having Andy Dalton as a quarterback when he didn't show anything to say that could help us win games. He was so scared of Jameis Winston losing us games that he was going with somebody who wasn't to win you the game. And at the quarterback position, even if you have a good defense, you still need somebody who can game for you there. And Andy Dalton just can't for you. So I thought last year was a failure on the offensive side of the ball from the coaching staff. And Dennis Allen has to be held accountable for that. He's the head coach. I know that he's a defensive specialist, but because he's the head coach, he still has responsibilities on the offensive side of the ball. We just didn't look good on that side of the ball at all last year.
Well, you did speak on Dennis Allen, and to me, Dennis Allen, I still remember him as the Raiders coach, and that wasn't pretty. So to me, I'm still think the jury is out on Dennis Allen as a coach. Defensive coordinator, great. Head coach, still not so sure. But speaking of the defense, the Saints, of course, were talented, and it had to be frustrating watching the Saints defense play well, and then the offense not be able to kind of pay off what the defense was doing out there. Just describe how frustrating that probably was watching in terms of that instance going down. Those instances week to week, I should say.
Yeah, really frustrating. And you know how the Migos have that song "Bad and Bougie"? Our offense was bad and boring. Like, not only was it bad, but it was just boring to watch our offense do what they were doing last year. And defensively, like, the one game that really stands out to me, or there's a couple games, but the one that stands out to me the most is against San Francisco. San Francisco was a very good team last year, made it to the NFC Championship game. We played again, and our defense shut them down. Like, they weren't able to do anything offensively all game long. Still lost that game because our offense just had nothing for us. And I understand that San Francisco has a good defense, but offensively, they should have done something to help us out. You think about the game against Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football, where Tampa Bay had a crazy comeback at the end of the game to win. And offensively, we could have did just a little bit more, just be average. We could have won so many more games. So it was extremely frustrating watching our offense just let our defense down over and over again. For sure.
Now, speaking of frustrating, I know it had to be frustrating for a particular wide receiver you like to watch on your team. Well, previously with Drew Brees, now it would be Michael Thomas. It just seemed like he could not get on the field last year as well. What's going on with Michael Thomas? It's almost like, can't guard Mike is can't get healthy Mike these days.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a very, very accurate description of Mike at this time. Is can't get healthy. You just got to hope that he can stay healthy. That he'll be ready for week one and that he looks healthy. The little time that he did play last year, he looked good. He looked good in those moments. But again, you just have to be able to stay healthy. And I've joked that you have to get a fountain. Everybody jokes about the fountain of youth. New Orleans has to find a fountain of health, right? Throw Michael Thomas in there, throw Zion in there, and let's get them going in that health for sure, because those two guys are so dynamic at what they do when healthy. And hopefully with Michael Thomas, we get that this year, especially with Derek Carr at quarterback, and they can build that chemistry along with Chris Olave and other weapons that we have. That would be amazing to see. But at this point, it's kind of hard to depend on that. So you're just hoping that he's healthy, and it's kind of a bonus if he's healthy that we haven't had in so long.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting just to see if he can stay healthy. And then, of course, build chemistry with David Carr. We're going to get into that actually in a second. But, I want to talk about the offseason, kind of transition there. The offseason for the New Orleans Saints. And, you can't talk the offseason without talking about Alvin Kamara. Of course, last season, he played through the entire season. You never knew what was going to happen. Or, a lot of people thought it wasn't going to be a suspension during the season. It ended up not being one. And then to start this year, of course, it comes down to ruling a 3-game suspension. Now, in my opinion, I think he got off pretty light. What do you think of the ruling of the NFL? Basically, for those who don't know, it was a brawl in the elevator, basically. Him and Chris Lamont, who is actually a defensive back for the Indianapolis Colts, were involved in it, and it was pretty messy. But, to come out with a 3-game suspension out of that, I mean, he was pretty lucky, in my opinion. But, I mean, what did you think of the ruling itself?
Yeah, I thought that he might have gotten longer. As a Saints fan, I definitely was afraid of that for sure. So, from a Saints fan's perspective, hey, I'm with it. I'm good with that. I have no problem with that ruling, So, hopefully, it seemed like he has learned his lesson from that, and that he'll be able to move forward, knowing how to move in those situations, and also how to avoid those situations going forward. So, I think a 3-game suspension may be a little light, but because of all the time that has passed, that's probably why it was such a light suspension, because he's left already, and they just had to give him a suspension at this point.
Got you. Okay. Now, of course, the team will miss him, but they did pick up one gentleman from the Detroit Lions. That would be Mr. Jamal Williams. Now, for those that aren't aware, he had career high 1,066 yards rushing last season, also had 17 rushing touchdowns. So what do you think of his addition, and can he, kind of hold down the fort while Alvin Kamara is gone?
He could definitely hold down the fort. He's somebody who isn't going to have the explosive plays of Alvin Kamara, but he's very consistent. He's somebody who's going to get you those 4 or 5-yard runs. And we also have a young man in Kendre Miller who's proved himself in those 3 games. A lot of the reports come out of camp that he's been amazing as far as his ability to both catch out of the backfield and run between the tackles. So I think you're going to be surprised in those first 3 games to see Miller probably take the bulk of the carries compared to Williams. But Williams had the goal line and still the guy in short yardage for us.
I thought it was very telling in regards to the Saints this offseason that they brought in Kareem Hunt and, took a look at him and things like that, even with Jamal Williams there. So, I am kind of interested how they're going to deploy him. And, he's got to be wondering when they're bringing in like Kareem Hunt and those different players, he's got to be wondering where his role stands with this team. I mean, you did sign him to a 3-year deal in the offseason. It's almost like you're trying to replace him as a guy that can step in there off top. I mean, I understand that the passing offense with him isn't necessarily the greatest, but do you think he feels like? Do you think he should feel a certain way about that?
He's been in the league for a long time now, so I think he understands, the business side of it and understands what he's capable of at this point, right? He knows that he's a better short yardage guy. Someone like Kareem Hunt, we've seen the ability of him to be a dynamic number 1. And, before he had an incident in Kansas City, he was looked at as one of the best running backs in the league and then had to take a back seat to Nick Chubb in Cleveland. So when you have a chance to bring someone like that in, you got to look at him. You have to at least see what's going on there. So I don't think he should feel a type of way. I think he just has to go out there and prove that he is worth being that number 2 guy for the Saints.
It'll be interesting to see. And I definitely, knowing him, he's probably not reading or listening to any of these things because he likes anime. So he's probably not hearing us.
It's been awesome seeing the videos in camp of him like signing Pokemon cards and different anime things for the fans out there. So it's been pretty dope seeing that interaction that he's has with the fans because of that connection with anime.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I honestly expect him to eventually come out with his own anime, but he probably just hasn't thought about it or had time to make it there yet.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Now, of course, I can't end the offensive part of it. Now, I did talk about Michael Thomas earlier and him being healthy, but part of that, him and his production, if he is healthy, is going to be tied to Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr was the big fish to get this offseason for New Orleans to kind of shore up the quarterback position, which hasn't been stable since Drew Brees retired. Now, this reunites him with Dennis Allen. Now, I wouldn't say they had necessarily the greatest success together with the Raiders, but, hey, he's familiar with Dennis Allen, so I get it why he signed there. And automatically, with him, 20-plus touchdowns and an average of maybe 10 interceptions a season, which, that's not bad. A 2-to-1, touchdown to interception ratio is not horrible. And they're saying it's outstanding, but it's not horrible either. So how do you feel about him being your starting quarterback this year?
I feel pretty good. When you look at his history, he's never had a defense like he's going to have this year. This ranked defense he had in Oakland/Vegas was 19th. Right? He's never had a top half defense in the NFL during his entire career. So the fact that he's going to have what's projected to be a 10 or top 13 defense at the latest or least with the Saints definitely puts him in a good position. And also, he just never had consistency in Oakland and Vegas as far as who's going to be his weapons, who's going to be there on the offensive line. He knows that going in. And now, even if Michael Thomas isn't healthy, he still has other weapons to go to and a good offensive line in front of him. And also the chemistry that he gets to build with offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael, who's been there forever now. I think that consistency and just having a constant going to happen on a consistent basis from the Saints is really going to help Derek Carr. And I can see him having a great year for us.
Now, I did have one other question. Are you concerned about the talk about his performance in the clutch? Because, some people will say that he doesn't necessarily perform well when it comes to clutch times or fourth quarter. Does that kind of, bother you just a little bit, or is that something you're kind of watching and keeping up with?
I just have to wait and see what happens when he's with us in our situation and what happens in those clutch situations. Do we call the right plays? Do we protect him in those clutch situations? A lot of times, when a quarterback, quote unquote, in those situations, it's because he didn't get protected. He got sacked or something like that happened. So there's so much outside of their control in those situations, but because they are a quarterback, they get the glory and the blame. So hopefully we put him in the right situation to succeed. And we have to see if he's able to come through when he does have the right protection, when he does have the right plays, when he does have everything around him working correctly in those situations.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that offense develops under the leadership of Derek Carr. And honestly, to see if Dennis Allen kind of allows the offense to do a little bit more with a guy that he trusts. But we're going to talk about the defense of the New Orleans Saints, kind of flip over there. We're going to do that. But first, we have to take a quick commercial break on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. Of course, we are talking Saints. No, this is not turned into an NFC South show. We are talking about the NFC South teams that are going against the AFC South. So, I'm kind of trying to help the fans of the AFC South get familiar with the opponent. So, kind of ride with me, everyone. Of course, we talked about the offense earlier, but we do have to talk about the defense. And I cannot start talking about the New Orleans Saints defense without talking about the longest tenured New Orleans Saints, right? The New Orleans Saint right now, and that would be Cam Jordan. Now, he recently got a 2-year, $27.5 million extension to tie him to New Orleans through the 2025 season. Now, he has been kind of up and down in terms of his production and sacks, things like that, but his presence is always there. It isn't always, tied into sacks because, of course, he gets a lot of attention from offensive lines. And, of course, the other side isn't always there for him. But What all does he bring to this defense, just besides the numbers on the field?
Well, like you said, it's always a presence there with him, right? And one of the things that's underrated about defensive linemen, especially edge defensive linemen, is their play against the run. And he's one of the best defensive linemen in the game against the run. And I understand that now we're in a pass-happy league, and it's all about creating pass, generating offense through the pass, and also being able to stop the pass when you're on defense. But if you can stop the run and you can make a team one-dimensional, which Cam Jordan does a great job of doing, it makes it so much easier to stop the pass when you're passing from 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. It makes it extremely easier for your defense to be able to stop him in those situations. And Cam Jordan's a big part of that. And even with his sacks, they may go up and down, but it's never down to the point where you're worried about him not being able to get to the quarterback. Last year, he had 8.5 sacks. And that's something that you want from that position, to be able to stop the run and also still provide a presence in pass rush. He does so much for the defense from a leadership perspective, being able to teach the other defensive linemen. He's a huge part of why this defense has been a good defense for the past 5-6 years now. It's because of Cam Jordan's presence.
Right. And like you mentioned, he's teaching the other linemen as well. But one thing I want to ask is, who's going to step up? Because it can't just be Cam Jordan. Is it going to be Peyton Turner? Is it going to be Carl Granderson? Who is going to step up opposite of Cam Jordan to take advantage of the attention that he gets, in your opinion?
So hopefully it's a combination of those guys that you named, right? Carl Granderson last year had 5.5 sacks. He gets a chance this year to have a ball, and hopefully in that bigger role has more production. You think about Kalen Sanders, who we got from Kansas City, who I like that pickup because he was part of a defense that won a Super Bowl. So he knows what it takes to get there. Was playing alongside a great in Chris Jones. So he knows what it looks like, and he knows how to be productive from that defensive tackle position. We also picked up Nathan Shepard from the Jets, another player from a good defense. So when you're picking up guys who are parts of very good defenses, they know what it takes to be a good defense, and they know what their role is in that good defense. So even if they don't have crazy stats, they know how to hold down their position to where everyone else can do their jobs, right? If the defensive tackles hold down what they do, it opens up for our great linebackers and Demario Davis and Pete Werner to do their job. And then that translates to secondary. So I think that a defensive line doesn't have the flashy names outside of Cam Jordan, but we have people who know how to play their roles and have been successful. And we also have young guys like Peyton Turner, we took a chance on a 2021 draft out of Houston. We traded up to get him, and he hasn't lived up to that yet. This is a make or break year for him. He has to come in and be productive in the chances that he gets. And also we drafted Brian Breesy out of Clemson, who we're hearing great things about. I mentioned Kalen Sanders earlier, who played alongside Chris Jones. Sanders, in a roundabout way, not directly, but in a roundabout way, said that Brian Breesy, with his size and explosiveness, reminds him a little bit of Chris Jones. Very high praise. That is very, very high praise. But if you're hearing that from other defensive linemen who've played alongside greats like Chris Jones, you love to hear that. So I think our defensive line may surprise some people this year.
Now, you did mention him, and I was actually going to get to him next. That would be Brian Breesy, the rookie first-round pick from Clemson. Now, he played alongside a particular gentleman that's playing in the NFL too. That'd be Miles Murphy, that's playing as well. Pretty sure people have seen him as well, and he was a monster as well. With the Clemson, kind of the tradition of producing defensive linemen, are you excited for what potential he has with this New Orleans defense?
I'm very excited. Everything you're hearing is about how he's such a good athlete with good fundamentals. And when you combine somebody who has the fundamentals along with the natural athletic ability of him, and also he's somebody who on a personal side do a lot. So I think he really appreciates his opportunity of being in the NFL, and is going to take full opportunity or the full advantage of the opportunity to make sure that he's productive and make sure that he stays on the field. So I think he's going to be a great player for us. I don't look for him to be great right away, but as it goes along, you'll see more and more of him.
All right. Now, one person is a rookie with Brees we just talked about, but one person is a veteran. And of course, we're going to move to the safety position. That would be Tyrann Mathieu. Now, he had a solid season last year. He set a career high in tackles last year, which many probably don't know. But it wasn't necessarily the flash plays that you're used to or just the game-changing plays that you're used to from him. Year two, back home, New Orleans. What are you expecting from him this year that you probably didn't get last year?
Just for him to come out the gate faster. Like, he's somebody who, as the year got along, he played better and better as the year went along. He got more and more used to the system. So this being his second year, I expect him to come right out the gates and be better to start this year. And he played all 17 games last year. That's one thing that you were worried about with him coming in, getting a little older on the quote-unquote wrong side of 30 is, can he be healthy? And he played all 17 games last year. On wood, he can play all the games this year, and he'll be able to be more productive and know exactly what his role is right away. So I just expect him to do the same thing he did last year, just starting from the second half of the season, where he's more just confident and knows exactly what his role is. And because he knows what his role is, he can make more special plays that we're used to.
It definitely helps that he's in the same system again and that Dennis Allen is still there. So I think with Dennis Allen being there and the continuity, I think he's going to play a little bit faster and a little bit more free this year because he understands more what is expected of him, honestly. It definitely it's going to be interesting as well just to see him be a leader there in the back of that defense. You have Lattimore there as your star cornerback. You have a few young guys as well. So it's going to be interesting just to see the leadership portion, in my opinion. But, I just want to go over the Saints offense and defense. But, of course, this is an AFC South show, so we do have to talk about how they go against the AFC South. And the first game out the blocks, they see the Tennessee Titans and Mr. Derrick Henry. Now, as far as this, the Saints weren't necessarily incredible against the run, but they weren't bad against the run. They were kind of hovered right there in the middle against the run. And this is a big challenge facing a big man in the first game of the season. Of course, you worked out your preseason things and, people out there for the first time really playing an entire game. How interesting is it going to be seeing that physical a team the first game after preseason?
Man, it's definitely a big challenge, right? Because you want to have your defensive line that I just mentioned and have some new parts. You want them to be able to try to gel together, but we don't have that time. You got to get right in there and get thrown in the fire against Derrick Henry and that great running game that Tennessee has. And with that matchup, because you have to bring down extra people, the safeties, the linebackers, everybody has to be ready to help defend against the run, which means that our cornerbacks are going to be on islands. So the big matchup that I'm looking forward to is DeAndre Hopkins versus Marshawn Lattimore. I think that's going to be the big matchup that determines that game because we're going to do so much to try to stop that run that our cornerbacks have to be able to handle on their side as far as being on the island. And Lattimore is one of the best in the game. I think he definitely can handle his own, but we know Hopkins is that guy. So that's going to be a very, very good matchup in week one as far as prepares for that. And do we leave Lattimore and Paulson Adebo or Alontae Taylor, our cornerbacks, on islands against Tennessee's wide receivers, especially what do we do against play action? That's one thing that Tennessee is great at because Derrick Henry is such when they go into that play action and they have that classic crossing route across the middle that they always love to do, are we ready for that? Or do our linebackers get fooled and get pulled up? There's so many things that go into that matchup because of the strong running game. And week one's a tough time to have that matchup, but hey, we got to be ready.
I hear you there. Now, one thing I also want to mention in this game is that, not only is the matchup of D-Hop versus Lattimore, but you also have the matchup of whoever this number 2 cornerback ends up being versus Mr. Treylon Burke. Now, I will tell you, Treylon Burke looks like a different man from year 1 to year 2. He came in shape, stayed here in Tennessee, worked out, did a lot of different things, and he has been playing with swag and confidence throughout all the practices, making one-handed catches, jumping, making catches, all those different things. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does. But, the one key person I look at for this game, and you mentioned the play action, that would be Chig Okonkwo, the tight end for the The Titans, a lot of people don't mention he's actually was top 5 or top 10 in yards per catch last year, and that's all of tight ends in the NFL. So that's going to be a guy to definitely watch. The safeties versus Chiga Kwanko as well. But we're going to move on to the next team. That will be the Houston Texans. They come in October 15th, and by this point, a couple games have been played by Mr. C.J. Stroud, which I expect him to be the starter. And that's going to be interesting, for a couple things. Offensively, it's going to be interesting. Cam Jordan versus the Houston offensive line, because the Houston offensive line has had its issues. Of course, you do have Laramie Tunsil. Hopefully he doesn't, listen to Fat Joe before the game and lean back a little bit too many times. But, to me, it'll be an interesting matchup just to see how that offensive line does versus Cam Jordan. And then another matchup to look at is Stingley versus Michael Thomas, if healthy. That's going to be a pretty good matchup. What else are you thinking about when it comes to the Houston Texans and what things that you probably need to do in terms of defensively versus CJ Stroud?
Man, it's so much unknown going into that matchup because you have so much young talent on that team and a new coaching staff. So with someone like Derek Stingley Jr., he's somebody who I love coming out of, I'm an LSU guy. So I love what he was able to do there and thought he could be, and I still think he could be a big star in the NFL. And this year in a different system where he's going to be able to be more aggressive, how does that fit? Is he able to live up to that? Is he ready for that? Also with CJ Stroud, we know that he has the ability to move around the pocket. I think he'll be asked to use that more in NFL than he did in college. We only saw it in college for a couple of games, maybe. NFL, I think we'll see more of that mobile ability, and we have to contain him. Things that Cam Jordan is good at, Carl Granderson is good at, is when they rush, being disciplined in their rush. Right? It's one thing to get past your offensive lineman. It's another thing to get past your offensive lineman and contain a mobile quarterback. So I think that our defensive line is good at that, and we'll make CJ Stroud have to pass the ball and read our defense. And by week 6 for a rookie, that's what you want him to do. You want him to have to make decisions in tough situations. And I think, we'll be able to hopefully win that game just off by experience versus their youth.
It's going to be interesting for sure. And another thing about week 6, there's going to be tape out there more about CJ Stroud and his tendencies. So that'll be another thing to keep up with to see if he's able to make those adjustments. Because I always say a player is good, but when a player has staying power is when a team makes adjustments against them, and then that player makes the adjustments to still be effective. So that'll be interesting to watch and see how early he's able to make those adjustments. Now, moving on. The next week, you got Jacksonville, and actually it's a Thursday night game, so you have a quick turnaround from the Texans to Jacksonville. Now, I wouldn't want this quick turnaround just because you're going from a team that's inexperienced, young, you don't know what to expect, to a high-flying offense led by Trevor Lawrence. Now, that Jacksonville offense, I've said this numerous times, they could average probably 30 points a game this year. They have the potential to do so. And the New Orleans Saints defense has a task on their hands. So if you're the New Orleans defense, the biggest thing I would think is to probably get pressure on Trevor Lawrence and try to expose that offensive line. Do you agree, or do you have some other things you could think about?
No, that's definitely the key. The key is to make Trevor Lawrence as uncomfortable as possible. Make it to where he doesn't have time for all those weapons to get open. Also, stop the run. If they're not able to run the ball, you make it to where they have longer downs to complete those passes. With Jacksonville, man, they have this wide receiver now by the name of Calvin Ridley that Saints fans have become very, 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 very familiar with over the years because of his time with Atlanta. He had a lot of success against us. In the 6 games that he played, he had 36 receptions for 556 yards and 4 touchdowns against us. A lot of success against the Saints. So that matchup, like you said, the quick turnaround, I am not excited about it. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's gonna be a tough one for us, but hopefully we can get that pressure on Trevor Lawrence and make him uncomfortable, stop their run game, and make them one-dimensional. And then when they are one-dimensional, be able to contain Christian Kirk and Ridley and Evan Ingram. They have a lot of weapons, so I do agree with you. That's going to be a very, very tough matchup.
Well, one weapon you didn't mention was Zay Jones, and I call him Bruce Leroy. If you just go see his picture, you'll understand why I call him Bruce Leroy. But another guy that I would say is a young guy to watch out for when you flip over the team to the defense, Jacksonville defense, Tyson Campbell. He's a guy that actually has continued to grow and evolve and is now their number one corner. And from all accounts is ready to take that next step into elite categories. So it'll be interesting to see Tyson Campbell versus Michael Thomas. Of course, assuming he's healthy, it'll be interesting to watch that. Last, but certainly not least, I do have to mention the Indianapolis Colts. Now, that game is October 29th. So by October, you're done with the AFC South. But in that game, you have to deal with a gentleman that is coming back from calf and back injuries that actually is reportedly looking very good and like the old version of himself. That would be Mr. Shaquille Leonard, as they call him now these days. And he could potentially be there to wreck the Saints offense. And if he plays at an all-pro level, I mean, how do you deal with that type of talent in the middle of a defense if you're the Saints?
You try to avoid him at all costs, right? Wherever he's at, go the opposite direction. Like he's an absolute monster. Like you say, when he's healthy, he disrupts everything. So just go the opposite direction of what he's doing. Try to fool him sometimes. Maybe you run a stretch play action where you're faking it to the left, and next thing you know, you have something going behind him to the right. Like try to get him out of position. That's the best way to try to attack somebody like that. Is just make sure that they're not involved in every play. Because he has this sixth sense where he just knows where the ball is, and either get interception or he's forcing fumbles with the classic peanut punch that he has. So it's something that he's very good at, and you just want to avoid him at all costs.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting just to see how he does in terms of coming back this season, battling through the back injury, which anytime anyone has back surgery, I don't care what they tell me, you're never really the same after back surgery. So it'll be interesting to see. And then also what'll be interesting to see is if the Saints offensive line can kind of get to that second level. Of course, they do have Buckner up front, the Colts do. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can get to that next level and get to Shaquille Leonard. And another thing you did mention in terms of misdirection, one thing is to change his sight level. Because, of course, you could run different things, going left, right, things like that, to make his eyes see different things. It's almost like, motion and things like that. I know the Saints do like running some motion in their offense, but I would say they may want to check out the 49ers and how they kind of move in motion and things like that to kind of deal with different defensive players. That may be something that could help them. But, of course, I do want to mention Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. Now, they're a combination that could have a really good year and could grow together to be the best combination of wide receivers in the AFC South. Now, I am not saying they are. I know Jacksonville is that right now, but I said they could grow into that. So them versus the Saints secondary, those big, long, fast wide receivers versus the Saints secondary. Does that give you a little trepidation? Even though, the Saints, the Colts don't necessarily, have an experienced quarterback or or if Minshew plays, don't have a guy that really has that type of arm to, take advantage of anybody's secondary like that?
No, I have a lot of confidence in our secondary. I believe Lattimore is one of the best in the league. Paulson Adebo, I believe, is underrated. Alontae Taylor made a big jump at the second half of last year. I think he is somebody who can hold his own as number 2 or number 3. Love our safety. So I don't have like a trepidation about their wide receivers. My biggest trepidation would be if it is Richardson that's playing. Another thing about containing somebody who's that athletic, right? He's on a different Justin Fields, type level of athleticism where once he takes off, he can be gone. And our defensive line and linebackers have to be ready for that.
Now, I will mention this too. I didn't know if you knew this fact about Alontae Taylor. Now, when he was at University of Tennessee, he actually came in as a wide receiver, and he switched to play defensive back. So that's how that actually happened.
That makes sense for his size, for sure.
Yeah, he's from the state of Tennessee. So I remember him playing wide receiver and being recruited and things like that, and then playing for the University of Tennessee. at that point. Yeah, I figured I'd throw a little nugget out there for you out there for Alontae Taylor.
That's nice. I love that.
But yeah, we went over the AFC South versus the Saints. But, of course, there is a game to this show. It's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. But we're not going to start it right now. We're going to give you a quick commercial break. Let Damian kind of catch his breath, get his mind right for this game. When we come back, 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
You ever missed your mom's home-cooked meals? Well, you're not always able to get to those, but you are able to get to H&T's Home Cooking. Established in 2005, Patty Palin and her staff go out 6 days a week to create some of the best home-style meals you can taste and at a fair price. So if you're in Nashville and you like chicken and dressings, green beans, macaroni and cheese, and other things, stop by H&T's Home Cooking. The address is 2264 Murfreesboro Pike, Nashville, Tennessee 37217. And they are open Monday through Thursday and Sunday, 11 to 6:30, and Friday, 11 to 7. And if you want to order online, of course, the option is available as well at hthomecooking.com, or you can call 615-367-0049. H&T's Home Cooking, food for your soul.
Yeah, I'm ready to go get some food now, but of course they're not open today. They'll be open tomorrow. But we do have the game portion of the show. 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Damian, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's get it.
All right. Now, first question, over or under 11 sacks for Cam Jordan this year?
I'm going to go under, but it's going to be a good thing because our defensive lineman will pick up the slack.
Okay. All right. We're going to flip to some music. We're going to go big timers here. Cash money. All right. We got the number 1 stunner. What? And I ain't going to go to that. Or we got Still Fly. You got to pick one song you riding out to. Which one are you going with?
Oh, I got to go Still Fly. I got to go Still Fly on that one. Like, I was in 6th grade when Still Fly came out, and it was everywhere. It was everything. Like, yeah, Still Fly. Like, I'll still play it to this day. Like, I'll play like a little adult basketball league. I'll still play it to get hyped right before I get out the car. Like, Still Fly is my joint.
Okay. All right. Well, next one up is, of course, we're going back to we're going to New Orleans, beignet or po' boy. Which one are you taking? Which one? You got to have that good meal.
Oh,
Which one you going with?
That's tough because usually I can eat those two in the same day. You got a beignet in the morning, you got a po' boy for lunch. Oh, man. If I had to pick one, I would go with the beignet because there's so many other options as far as lunch and dinner in New Orleans. So I'll go with the beignet to start my day because, yeah, every time I go back home, I probably consume like 15 to 20 beignets in the time I'm there. Like, I love beignets.
Oh, man, I tell you what, I do like the po' boys, though. The po' boys there are different than the po' boys you get anywhere outside of New Orleans. Just letting folks know that because,
for sure.
You talk about you had a po' boy, but no, you ain't had a real po' boy till you go down to New Orleans. That's just facts. All right, we're gonna go more rushing yard.
The type of po' boy. I say you got the type of po' boy that you have. Like, my favorite po' boy is an alligator po' boy. So I like to have the alligator on there with hot sauce. I got the pickles. Like, my po' boys point with the sauce, the alligator. Like, the bread has to be the right condition of bread. It got to be soft, but not too soft. Like, the po' boy, it's a science to it. Like, it's not just a simple thing. The right po' boy and whatever your stock sausage. Some people like chicken. Like, but me, alligator po' boy is my go-to.
Okay. All right. Well, I haven't tried that one, but the shrimp po' boy is definitely my go-to because I love shrimp and seafood. So that's right up my alley right there. Let's see. Next one. more rushing yards this season, Alvin Kamara or Jamal Williams?
Oh, Alvin Kamara. Even with the 3-game suspension, I still think more rushing yards because he's going to be used so much. Touchdowns, though.
Okay. All right. All right. Next question I got for you. We're going, let's see. We're going Lil Wayne with this one. Okay. The Carter 3 album is the album.
Yeah.
Let the Beat Build or Millie. Which song are you taking?
Oh, that's tough. This might be an unpopular choice, but I like Let the Beat Build. I like Let the Beat Build because just the way, like, and him, spitting over it is super dope. So I'm gonna go unpopular choice of people.
Okay. All right. Well, that's 5 questions, but I did have a bonus one for you. Since you notice I didn't mention any, Master P or No Limit. So I got to throw a bonus one in there, the No Limit question. Okay. Here we go. We got No Limit Soldiers by True. For those that don't know, True stands for the Real Untouchables. Or Make Them Say, Master P. You got to pick one song. Which one are you picking?
All right, so the connection broke up just a little bit. Can I have that one more time?
Okay. We got No Limit Soldiers by True, which is the Real Untouchables, or Make Them Say by Master P. Which song are you taking?
Oh man, that's a tough one for sure. Man, brings back memories of having CDs every week. Every week, No Limit was dropping a different CD. I'm gonna go with Make Them Say I'm gonna go with Make Them Say because it's such a classic. And even the skit beginning with I believe it's Kel from Keenan and Kel, who's trying to act like he's Master P. He's like, man, this ain't no P, and then they start the song. Like everything about that is classic.
All right. That's 5 questions and a bonus one. 2 answers and 1 choice. Thank you again for coming on, Damian, breaking down the New Orleans Saints and, of course, them against the AFC South. I want to give the floor to you. Tell everyone what you're working on, what you have going on, and where they can find you on social media.
Oh, man, thank you so much for having me on the show. Again, I'm a big fan of your show, and I know that you have, so many big-time guests that come on. So I'm happy to be a part of that fraternity of guests for touring the AFC South for sure. And for me, what's going on? My podcast is The Real Deal with Damian Adams, which you can catch every week, usually dropping on Monday nights or Tuesday morning. We'll be back this week after taking a break last week. I just got hired recently by Burn City Sports. So this is a sports outlet in Phoenix. So if you are a fan of Phoenix sports teams or live in the Phoenix area, make sure you check out Burn City Sports. Consistent content. Like I'm talking about every day. You're going to get consistent content on the Cardinals, the Suns, the Coyotes, everything Arizona State, the Phoenix Rising, everything Phoenix sports-wise will be covered by Burn City Sports, and you'll get a lot of my content there. My main job there is covering the Phoenix Suns for this upcoming season. So if you are a Suns fan or just a basketball fan, period, the Suns are going to be one of the best teams this year. Make sure you check out Burn City Sports for my Suns content there. If you live in the Arizona area and you are interested in high school football, follow me on Twitter. I will be covering high school football on Friday nights for AZ Central as well. So got a lot going on right now. And, it's truly a blessing to be booked and busy. And it starts with being booked on this show. So thank you again for having me, Mike.
Yes, sir. And then tell everyone where they can find you on social media again.
Oh, yes. You can find me at The Real Deal WDA. That's The Real Deal, W as in whiskey, D as in Delta, A as in Alpha on all social media platforms. On Instagram, it's The Real Deal WDA2. The original one got hacked. I had to restart it. So it's The Real Deal WDA2. But everywhere else, it's The Real Deal WDA. I'm always dropping content on social media, TikTok, Twitter, or the platform formerly known as Twitter, as I call it now. I'll have stuff on there as well. So make sure you go and check me out on social media at The Real Deal WDA.
All right. And then also for those that don't know, if you want to talk boxing, Damian's your guy. He actually is a judge for that, or is training to be a judge for that as well. So wanted to throw that out there because, definitely I'm not the most in-depth boxing fan, but I know who to go to if I need boxing information for sure. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Of course,
that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Touring the AFC South. Of course, my name is Mike Patton. You can find me on Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton82. You can find me on Instagram at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. As far as Touring the AFC South, you can find it on YouTube. Hello, everybody. You can also find it on all your listening platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, you name it, we are there. Go like, subscribe, and comment as well. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. You've been watching Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.